Hey everyone, it's Ashley. Welcome to my home. Today we're going to do something that I love to do, which is to host dinner parties. I really love having friends over, and it's one of my favorite things to do, to host people. And most of the time it's pretty casual. We just kind of throw stuff out on the grill, get stuff popping, people come in, there's kids running here and there, but sometimes I like to set up an experience for my friends that's a little bit more communal, functional, and most of all, beautiful. I grew up in a really big family, and even now we'll have like taco nights and like big grilling fests, and gathering has really shifted as the landscape of our world has shifted. So dinners don't always happen around a table, and setting a table and doing it really intentionally and wonderfully is really something that people really hunger for. And I like being the person that's able to create that experience and hoping that people take those experiences from my table into their own homes. Don't say anything about my dust covers not being on here, y'all. It's cats, you know? They get into stuff. You know, here's your reminder that if you haven't moved your furniture to sweep in a while, maybe today's the day, you know? Maybe you don't want rubber bands for your braces on the floor when your dinner guests are eating. I know I don't. My cat's really into rubber bands. Okay. This is an 8-foot table. Gotten a lot of people around this table. They might have been smushed, but it was okay. But today we're gonna set a table for 4, so. All right, so let's talk about textiles. I have used everything from a bed sheet to a curtain to put down as a base layer for my table. But today we're gonna be a little civilized and use some actual tablecloth. So because my centerpiece has a little bit of blue in it, I have this blue tablecloth, or I was thinking about maybe playing around with something black and white with a little bit more texture, visual texture. So I don't know, what we want to do is make sure that each piece isn't too visually noisy on the table. So as you add things down, you may find that this is a little too visually busy and take some things out. So what I'm going to do is kind of lay this across, and as I bring more elements in, kind of feel out what I think about the table, the centerpiece, all of those elements together, then build out. You can start with an anchor point, like, I don't know, maybe there's a dish on the table that you want to use. Maybe it's the food that is the star and you don't want to take away from that. But for me, it's the centerpiece of my flower arrangement, and so I'm going to design around that. I think it works well with both. But we also have different textiles that I'm going to be using kind of as a placemat, but they also make for really good textural layers as place settings on the table. So that's how I'm going to use those. So I'm going to lay these down. I don't know which ones I'm going to use yet, but we're going to also play around and see what looks good with both the tablecloth, the centerpiece. And this is really just kind of feeling my way around texture, around color. You can see a few notes from our flowers in a little bit of the textile, so maybe I want to pick those out as well. And I think what I'm leaning toward, we're working with blue plates today. I think I'm going to stick with the black and white. So another thing to consider when you're laying down or laying out your table, sometimes we like to start with the plates, because that's the fun part. That's what we're going to be eating off of. But I like to start with the platters. So I typically know what I'm going to serve my guests. And if I know what I'm going to serve, I know what I'm going to serve the food in. So if I want that on my table, I actually place the platters down first, so that way I can build around those things. You hate to build out all of your cups and spoons and other things, and then there's no room for the food. So let's start with platters first and then work our way back out. Just kind of place these, and then making sure that we're leaving room for plate. So I'm just gonna give these a little bit more visual dimension by turning them a little catty corner, but you can do whatever you'd like. So next up, we're gonna do plates, which is my favorite part, so let's go. right, so since our centerpiece is blue, I went all blue. What if we just went full out blue, every plate a little bit different and mismatching, and it'll feel very personable to the person who's sitting. So I'm gonna also take each plate and match them with the place setting and then get those laid out. I like it. All right, so place settings can go a bunch of different ways. You can lay them fully out, you can fold them into something fun. I am just gonna lay them down so that it's kind of falling into the guest's lap a little bit. And then we'll just sit the plate on. I really love these. They're like linen samples. If you ever want like something textural like this, you know, there are places that sell them, or you can just look for fabric scraps. So the next thing I'm gonna add on the table are garnish plates. Most of my dishes usually have a little bit of something sprinkled on the top. It could be an herb or just a little bit of relish or something. And I like to put a little bit of extra out on the table just in case people want. So I'm gonna grab some garnish plates, and of course they're gonna be blue because we're in a theme. All right, so these are lovely. Okay, next up, we're gonna start putting some drinkware. I always do a water glass and a wine glass, and that's usually because you never know who drinks what. And so instead of assuming, we just make sure that we have glassware out for everyone. So I'm gonna start with water glasses first, and I have two different options that I wanna play with. Clear glass and this kind of smoky glass, but I wanna match them and see if they work first. So let's try both. I just wanna see what they look like. Sometimes you kind of have to go away and then come back. And remember, like, this is all about play. Not being regimented, just being really playful. So that feels really nice. Let's get the stemware on the table and then we'll see how we feel about it. And also, you don't have to put these together based on some classic representation of what table setting looks like. It's whatever you want it to look like, you know? When people sit down to a really well organized table, it doesn't matter if you've used the right fork or the right spoon or put the glass in the right place. It's really about what you think about it. So I think this looks good. I'm gonna do some flatware. I think it's time. So I brought out a tiny collection of my antique serverware, things that I've kind of collected as a food stylist, and I think they would be really darling on a table. So first I'm gonna start out with, you know, just the basic fork and knife. All right, and so for the serverware, I think it'd be really nice to put a couple of things down that would, you know, kind of suit what's being served. I'm still kind of curious about what those cups look like, but we're gonna keep going and then lay them back in there and see what we think about them a little bit later. But I'm gonna add in our centerpiece and then go from there. Centerpiece, so pretty. And you can do things like raise the centerpiece up on something, or we can layer something down as another piece of texture to add to the table. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. Usually runners run this way, but I like the idea of a runner down the middle of a table, you know? Ooh, yeah. Yes. So we wanna make sure that looks good on the other side of the table. It's looking good. Wow, not me shocked at my own self. Okay, so I've been kind of going back and forth with myself on whether or not I wanted to add the smoky glasses or keep the clear glasses. Now that I'm seeing my centerpiece, I'm seeing in the arrangement some little complements that would really look good with the smoky glass. So let me add that back and see if that works really well with these dried hydrangeas. Look at that. Complementary. That's what we're talking about, man. Playing, switching it out, switching it up, and a little bit of dynamic. Yes, yes, yes. That added just what we needed. Okay. So the last little bit is, how do we get salt and pepper on the table? For me, I like anything that is a moment. So for salt and pepper, it's these really cool marble ramekins with little spoons that people can dig in, get a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and set it down or pass it. I really like tactile, hands-on experiences. And when you give people a little bit something extra to do, or an interesting knife, or a really fun olive fork, people get to engage with materials or things they've never seen before or haven't had the chance to use in a while. And so that gives you the opportunity to create that experience for another person. I also just really love the experience of watching people pass things family style. I want people to like pass something along, hold something for someone, let them scoop things or serve another person. The really great thing about family style is that you have this really familial and beautiful experience with another person, and you want to build a table that gives people the opportunity to do that. So the next thing I'm going to do is add the mood in this room. And one of my favorite ways to create atmosphere is with light. Sometimes I will pick a restaurant out based on the light in the space. No one wants to be with harsh overhead light or in a space that doesn't feel cozy and inviting. And one of the best ways to set mood and atmosphere is with candles. So I'm gonna put down some really nice tapers, and I like them tall because one, it takes a little bit longer for them to burn down, so lots and lots of conversation time, and they also add a lot of height and dimension to the table because you're going to have things like bottles and other stuff on the table, and they also complement what's happening in the centerpiece. So there's lots of different elements that kind of tie into what's happening in the middle of the table, which is this gorgeous forged arrangement. Lastly, I like to put a kind of finishing touch, and sometimes that's a place card with a name or a live flower, and live flowers are usually my go-to. All right, we're just gonna add these in for a really nice personal touch. And you can try them inside the glass, you can try them next, you can try them on the napkin, whatever works. Just something on the plate or the side of plate that lets a person know that you really thought about them when you put their place setting down. When your guests come in, they'll have all of these really beautiful elements. They'll see the candles going, they'll smell the food on the stove, but I also like to add an extra touch to all of the rooms in my home, honestly, because it's a dinner party. So you don't have to clean your baseboards, but what I do love is a little bit of smell. So I like to add just a kind of room spray. Sometimes it's Palo Santo, sometimes it's incense. And so I'm gonna spray something called Clarity. It's got grapefruit and ginger. It's supposed to inspire reflection, and that's what we want at a dinner party. No calamity, reflection. And when people come in, they smell everything. They smell the flowers, they smell the food, and they feel things going in it. It feels good. Calms people down. It was really nice having y'all over to watch me build out my artful tables. This is like one of my favorite things to do, transforming my space into space that's communal and for everybody. And actually, I'd love to hear how you build out yours. So write in the comments and tell me how you build out artful spaces for your homes. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Handmade for more videos like this.